Hey guys, it's Antonio and welcome back to our Washington Church of Christ YouTube channel. I want to take a moment and just apologize for how long it's been since I've posted the video. I am very sorry about that. But today I want to talk about something that actually occurred to me yesterday. Yesterday I was out in the yard preparing a piece of our lawn to become a garden. And as I was doing so, I really just started thinking about all the different passages in the Bible talking about gardening and sowing the seed and all those things. And while we're not going to be relating it to them specifically, the action made me think of this. As I was getting deeper and deeper into the ground, as I took the layer of grass off and then started tilling the dirt, it actually got a little bit more difficult, and here's what I mean. One, I was much more fatigued than when I started, and two, there were a lot of underlying weeds under the ground. And it just made me think about how as a Christian, or when we become Christians and as we continue our Christian walk, sometimes the initial changes we make aren't very difficult. They aren't the most difficult things. They're kind of little changes, character changes that we need to make. But the moment we get past those, it takes some effort. We may feel a little fatigued. And as we get digging deeper and deeper, as we continue to be Christians and to work on being better, we start hitting the stuff that really has a hold on us. We start hitting maybe the sins or the difficulties and trials in our lives that really just have a grip on us. And it's these things that I want to talk about which relate to the weeds in the ground. They're underneath the surface, so you really can't see them from above the ground or from another person. And yet they exist and they have a hold. Some of these weeds were 10 feet long, just stringing under the ground like a interconnected web. And it just made me think how sometimes when we struggle with sins, they don't just hold a part of one part of our lives, but they interfere with several other parts. And how they're all connected and how we have to make several changes and adjustments. So I want to talk about today for just a second, and to bring up some verses, is how do we fix these things? Well, in Colossians chapter 3, verses 1 through 16, we know that the writer there, Paul, to the Colossians, is telling them about putting on the new self. And in doing so, he says to put away anger, sexual immorality, impurity, put away slander, put away wrath, put away those evil things, and rather put on compassionate hearts, put on love, put on kindness. And that same those thoughts is something that takes time. We don't just wake up different. It's part of this process. But the difficult thing about it is that we have this mindset sometimes as Christians that we're supposed to be doing it alone. And we're not doing it alone at all. I mean, Christianity in no context is to show that we are supposed to be Christians by ourselves. And when we look to James chapter 5, I believe it's verse 13, it talks about how confessing your sins to one another and opening up to one another, and how the prayer of a righteous person has great power in its working. So we need to look to one another to help each other, to encourage one another. And then, aside from just one another, we have a relationship with God to help us overcome these sins and rid these weeds out of our lives. And Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 through 2, it talks about how we are to lay aside every weight and every sin. And by doing so, we will be like Jesus, whose sole focus was on heaven and glory with God. And so I want to encourage you guys today that if there are things you're struggling with in your life, go find somebody to help you. Go find someone to maybe be that accountability partner. Go find someone to pray for you. Ask someone how you can pray for them. Because the prayer of a righteous person has great power in its working. And then lastly, I want to just encourage you to look to God, to look to the Lord, as He set an example for us on how to live and how to rid sin out of our lives. Thank you so much, guys. I hope this thought was encouraging to you. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below, and I'll be sure to respond to them. Thank you so much, and have a